Hi. So I wanted to start this week with Reconstruction. Reconstruction is a very important time in American history. Reconstruction is very important in that we are still a product and still trying to deal with the issues of the Civil War and Reconstruction. Um, the Civil War was a war of power, slave states versus free states, that was really in the making with Missouri Compromise and Kansas Nebraska Act and the Compromise of 1850, and these compromises, these acts were happening as the United States was growing and territories were becoming states. And so as the West was growing and growing and territories were being created that eventually became states, of course the issue was, will they be slave states or will they be free states? And that has to do with economics, but it also has to do with power. If you are in the federal government system, as we are right now, our government, three branches of government, is the same then as it is now with regards to how it works. If you have more slave states, then the slave states will have more power. If you have more free states, then the free states have more power in determining the outcomes of bills, whether they will become laws. And so there is a power differential. Right now in the United States, we have power differentials, not really between slave states and free states, but between conservatives or liberals or Republicans versus Democrats. The number of people that are in the Congress, whether it is a legislative branch or the Senate, if there's more of one than the other, then the one that has the most, so let's say there are more right now more Republican senators than there are Democratic senators. That means there's a Republican majority. When you have a Republican majority, then that means that the Republicans are able to determine who is going to lead different committees, whether it's the finance committee or the committee for defense committees. So there are these large committees within the Congress that are made up of individuals, both Democrats and Republicans right now, but whoever has the most in their, the most people are the majority, and therefore they have the most power in determining the outcomes of what kinds of bills will be presented to the floor and voted on. The same is true if Democrats were in charge. The same is true if independents were in charge. The mechanisms by which these things are happening have nothing to do with whether you are a Republican or a Democrat. Well, in the sense they sort of do, but like who you're going to vote for. But it is the mechanism of governing. And pre-Civil War, the mechanism of governing was free states versus slave states. And even though there were different groups, parties, like the Whigs or the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, led first by Abraham Lincoln, it is the number of people from the group that's in charge, the largest number of people who make up the Senate or the House of Representatives are the majority, right? Because they're the majority of people. So prior to the Civil War, the slave states and the free states were very concerned as who is going to be the majority. And whoever was going to be the majority was going to have more leverage and more power. So that was a huge deal with, that was a power grab or power differential between the growing West and how they were going to enter the federal system. With that said, the Civil War not only was about who was going to have the power, but also it was an ideological war. Ideological wars are much, much different than the war like World War II, which we know we have an aggressor. We see that aggressor, we're going after that aggressor, and we want to take down that aggressor to restore balance. This wasn't about that. This was about the belief in a particular way of life. And in the South, where slavery was a part of life, in order to maintain slavery and to live with slavery, and in many ways the brutality of slavery, then the white people had to make, they have to rationalize how they can do that. And so one of the ways that they rationalize how they can live with slavery and the entrapment of human beings is to dehumanize them, to not make them human beings. This is common. It is a common tactic in order to take out people that you don't want in your society. World War II did the very same things. They dehumanized the Jews or any, not just the Jews, but also gypsies, people who they did not think met their standard. Dehumanization is the very first thing you do, because a natural and normal rational human being cannot behave badly and beat up other human beings or enslave them and still have a clear conscience. So you have to dehumanize them in order to maintain your power. Now, this is a very important aspect of Reconstruction, because though the Civil War ended, that ideological condition of white people being in power over black people, because black people they were not human, they were less than white people. So after the Civil War ended, Reconstruction started on a great foot as long as the Union Army was in the South and the Freedmen's Bureau was helping previous slaves learn how to read or write or gain a skill and go to school and things like that that were illegal while they were under slavery. So now you freed them, but what is so you freed them. Now can they make a living? Now can they live in society after that kind of servitude? So the Freedmen's Bureau helped freed blacks and freed slaves be able to bring them up to a level of being able to take care of themselves. And it was only maintained by the Union Army being in the South and making sure it was maintained. And while the Union Army was in the South, as you'll see in the videos this week, Reconstruction was really beginning to work. But the moment the Union soldiers left the South, then Reconstruction began to deteriorate. Because why? Because just as one of the videos says, just because the war is over doesn't mean people's opinions have changed. People's opinions still have not changed, because it is part of generational racism. It's part of, this is what I learned, and then what you learned is what you're going to teach your children, unless something changes that helps you understand a different way of looking at it. So human beings are human beings. We grow up in an environment, and the environment teaches us certain things. Some of those things may not be true. Some of those things may be skewed. And everybody is part of this. This is not, this isn't limited to white people or to black people or to brown people or whatever. This is just humanity and cultures, different cultural, I'm Italian, and I'm from New York. And when we all greeted each other, we'd greet each other with a hug and a kiss, but to cheeks. Men would do the same thing. That was not kissing. Two men seeing each other and kissing each other on the cheeks was not a sign of not being masculine. It was just a cultural thing. So some people would look at that and say, oh my gosh, these guys, kissing another guy, is that really? So everyone has something that they've grown up with that is, not a moral failing in any way, shape, or form, but it's something that we have to acknowledge within ourselves and then move forward with and try to make the world better around us. And I'm hoping by understanding Reconstruction, you can really see that we're still dealing with the opinions, the way people think about others and feel about others, over 100 years later, well over 100 years later, we're still, grappling with some of these things. And I just wanted to bring help you become aware of that. And please make sure that you're watching all the videos. The quiz at the end of the week is going to include materials from the videos, and this is a part of our history that I think is very, very important in understanding issues that face the South. Even now, face the Midwest, even the North, the Midwest. It is just inherent. It's just part of the bones in American history, and we need to understand them. Okie dokie. If you have any questions, give me a call or email. That's it, email.